Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you here with us tonight to learn about how to create a balanced life for our kids. Something that I know that I've struggled with as a parent, and probably you have too. And it's okay, because it is a juggling act and it's very hard to do. I'm Ashley Croson, Director of Community Services. On this panel, you'll see Christy Alexander. She is our Family and Community Engagement liaison, and she is queen of summer camps and dances and all the things. So if you're looking to get your kiddo signed up for summer camps this year, she is your gal. And then we are super excited to have with us tonight Dr. Ryan Smith. Many of you who have attended our Raising Eagle sessions before have heard him speak and love him. And so we're super excited to welcome him tonight. And he is going to lead the way on how to create that balanced life for our kids. So without further ado, Dr. Ryan Smith.
I only assume that there's like rabid applause. I can't hear them because we're on a Zoom call, but I have to expect, there's all kinds of love. I'll pause for a second so that the madness can die down. I am thrilled to be with you guys tonight. It is always a pleasure to be with your district. You guys are, I mean this, and I say this only to you. I promise I don't say this in every district I'm in. You guys really are on the cutting edge of parent engagement, which I know is kind of a weird cutting edge to be on. But the school district model in our society is evolving, and what school districts offer to kids is evolving. And so school districts have had to be flexible and have had to be flexible in a hurry. And you guys do a phenomenal job. So I'm always thrilled to be with you. I am going to go ahead and get things rolling here. So I'm going to share my screen with you here for just a second. Give me a second. I'm going to push play, and I'm going to back up just a little bit. If you're following along with us, you're going to see an awful lot of stuff tonight about that kind of encapsulates the picture you see on the screen in front of you. Because here's the thing. The theme for tonight is balanced living for kids. But you'll notice it's a parent that looks like she's about to pull her hair out in that picture. And the reason that I used that particular picture, I say used. The reason I had AI generate that particular, which for the record, we need to have an AI conversation at some point. But the reason we used this image is because, yes, this is a kid problem. But those of you who have been in conversations with me in the past, this won't be new to you. Every kid problem is a parent problem on some level. That's not to say that we're always at fault. That's not what I mean to say. I mean that if it affects our kids, it affects us. And if we're going to instill change in the lives of our kids, it has to start at kind of a family level first, and then it moves down into the kids. And so I want to be mindful of the fact that our conversation tonight might be kind of personal. So with that in mind, if you'll indulge me for about 2 minutes, can I tell you what's going on right now for me? My youngest son is 9 years old. He had a basketball game on Sunday that I coached. And so I was there for that. And then when that was over, my dad had come in town. And so my dad and my kids, and we went out to dinner. We're out kind of late. And then Monday, I had to get my oldest to school, and we had a normal school day. But then he had a basketball game last night that I'm also coaching. I coach his middle school team, which is a very weird thing. But we were out till about 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. We then had to go to dinner. And we got home, and I got very little sleep, and I had a meeting this morning at 8 a.m., and then I had basketball practice this afternoon, and now I'm with you at 5:30. This picture on the screen in front of you is how I feel literally right now. And so if you feel judged at any point in this conversation, I want you to hear I'm not judging you. Okay, I struggle with this like you do. There is not a parent that I've met who has just mastered the work, school, extracurricular life balance that we're all hoping for. You know, I think we all have this picture in our minds of like this stage of our kids' lives where when they're in elementary school and they're still sweet and like cuddly. We have this picture that it's always going to be like that. We don't generally envision what you see in front of you, but it happens a lot. All right, so I want you to hear me. I'm not judging you, parents. I promise I'm not judging you. The second thing that I want to emphasize is that I'm going to talk about parenting strategies, and I'm going to talk about those parenting strategies as they relate to busy kids. But parents, I need you to hear me. I don't blame you. So it's not about judgment and it's not about blame. You're not a bad parent if you feel overwhelmed and you're not doing something wrong. Okay. You're going to hear a lot of family language, but if you hear things that are corrective for you and your family, that's awesome. But I don't want you to hear that you're messing it up and doing it wrong. Okay. So here's my plea. My plea to you is, if you feel convicted to make some kind of like family structural change, awesome. You're probably going to need it again in about a year or two. Okay, we're all going to kind of in and out of these things. So I hope that sets an appropriate tone. And we'll get into it. So with that in mind, I want to pause for a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I don't know that, hold on. I don't know that I can see. Oh yeah, I can. Okay. I want to see the chat here for a second. So I'm gonna quit this because here's what I want. I'm gonna ask you a question, and I want to be able to see in the chat. I want to see some of your answers. So I'm gonna pause for just a second. Here's my question. Number one, what does busyness look like to you? When you see like that picture of a family that's chaotic, what does busyness look like for you? And let me give you a secondary question that might help you answer that. If you can, in the chat, throw some things in there that you feel are vying for your kids' time and attention. So I'm going to kind of pause for a second, but go on into the chat. What do you think is vying for your kids' attention? Okay, so we're off and running. Homework, screens, and sports practices. A lot of you, I actually recognize video games and late soccer. Screen time. Keep going, man. Keep going. Good. Homework, screens, screen time, driving to and from activities, shared interests, screen time, screen time. It's almost like you're all reading from the same book. Family time. Okay, good. Screen, screen, screen. All right. You guys are screen time. You guys are bizarre. No other families are struggling with that. It must just be you. I hope, for the record, if you don't recognize my sarcasm, I need to clarify it. Every family on earth is struggling with what you guys are struggling with. Sports, screen time. We're going to talk about all this stuff. Okay, good. So let me tell you why I'm encouraged. I'm looking through this chat right now. Video games, homework, screens, shared interests, family time, sports, kids procrastinate and then do homework too late. Again, I'm with you. You are singing our universal song. All right, so let me tell you why I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because I'm not seeing anything in this chat that we're not going to cover. Prioritizing faith education. Okay. I liked that. So we're going to spiritual community a little bit. So we can touch on that. Okay. I'm not seeing anything we're not going to touch on. Take that back. We had chores. You know what? I think we're going to, and then Benjamin can't see the chat. Assignments done in the last minute. All right. We're getting a theme here. Please don't be offended. I'm going to close the chat for a second and I'm going to go back to my screen. All right. So you guys just gave me some awesome answers. I'll be completely honest and transparent with you. You didn't tell me anything that I didn't think you were going to tell me. So I'm going to address these three questions. What does busyness look like in our homes? I'm not just going to talk about in your homes. In our homes, it looks like ships crossing in the night sometimes, where you don't really feel like you get a chance to really sit and talk to your kids or engage with your kids. It looks like partners in the home who feel the same way, who feel like business partners. So I'm a relationship counselor. I do marriage and family therapy. So romantic relationships, committed romantic relationships, whether it's the parental units in the home or it's other romantic interests of the parents, it is real easy to fall into a mode where adult partners with kids feel like they are business partners. The only thing they really share with each other is schedules and time, duties and responsibilities. So that's what busyness looks like. It looks like your home is a place where you kind of take a break from the real world and then you go back into the real world. So that's typically what it looks like. So the things that are vying for your kids' attention, you don't need me to talk about because you just nailed it. Screen time. There wasn't listed in here yet because I know this is elementary age parents, but peers is a big one. Not to the extent of previous generations, but peers are vying for their time and attention. And then what pressures do you feel? I'm going to take a wild guess that I am not alone in feeling like it is my responsibility to ensure that my kids have the best of everything, that they're in all the extra tutoring and all the extra coaching. And we want them to like work super hard at everything without recognizing the fact that when we ask our kids to give themselves to everything, we're asking them to deplete themselves fully. Okay, so that's a pressure we all have as parents. I'm going to give you another pressure I bet you feel. I'm going to say just a personal story, and I'm not telling you this because I think that my parenting is a model parent. I'm telling you because it's real for me too. So I'm a therapist for a living. You guys have gotten to know me fairly well. My family, I'm really adamant with my family about ensuring that we protect family time and that we spend time together and that we don't over prioritize things that we don't truly value. And I'm going to get to that here in a minute. But before we get there, it was not that long ago that I felt that way about my oldest son's sports. He plays, I played. It's something we share together. I've coached him for a long time, but I've been really intentional about not cramming it down his throat, and B, not making it a 12-month a year, something we do all the time. But here's the interesting thing. I know he doesn't work the way that he's not in all the camps that other kids are in. He doesn't play on teams year round. And what's interesting is I'm happy with that until we get on a court and he's competing against kids who do that. And I feel this pressure of like, oh, he should be better. And it's this constant struggle because in my mind, he should be better. I know we can work on this. If we go home and we drill this over and over and over, I know he'll get better. I know he'll get better. I was a basketball coach. I can correct the things I'm seeing. The problem is I keep having to remind myself, okay, but I'm making a commitment. All right. I want you to know I feel that exact same pressure. I swing and miss on it as much as anybody. Okay, so none of us are nailing this. All right, so let's get into the conversation now. I want to move into the stuff that I think you're going to benefit from. I want to start first with a few root causes. And for the record, I'm going to send Ashley a copy of these slides. Parents, you don't have to screenshot. If you want to, awesome. You don't have to. I'll send her a PDF and she can send it out to all of you. I'm going to give you a few root causes. Right out of the gate, there's a social media paradigm of the world. What I mean by that is, well, you know what, here, let me go ahead and get into the digital stuff. So social media paradigm of the world, and also there's digital interference that's created a sense that we're busier than we are. So I'm gonna put those two things together. Let me tell you the real short, easy thing that I just said. Everyone in our culture right now believes that they have no free time. We all believe that we're stretched to the limit. We all feel like we need a break and we need to decompress. But what's interesting is if you're in a counseling session with me and something I do from time to time is we'll sit and look at your screen time and how much time you're spending on various apps, and your screen time tells you actually have a lot more free time than you think you do. So one of the things that happens is we as parents, we give our downtime away to a device that kind of strips us of anything outside of the current moment. Okay, so if I get an hour this evening, when we're done tonight, when I get an hour, I may go home, and if I spend that hour scrolling, if I'm doing this for an hour, it might be enjoyable, and I'm not knocking it. It might be enjoyable, but I'm not going to take anything out of it. I'm not going to walk away from that hour with anything of benefit or of value. And so I don't really necessarily feel decompressed. I also recognize, and we may talk about this a little bit, but this is actually for a different presentation. In fact, let me go ahead and promote a presentation we're going to be doing this spring. So one of the primary reasons that you don't feel rested, and the primary reason your kids don't feel rested, is because digital interference is actually creating this dopamine reaction in their brains where it's putting your brain on a hamster wheel and it's running really, really, really fast. And so then when you close it, it's relaxing in the sense that you may have been laying on the couch or you may have been sitting in a chair, but your brain didn't decompress during that time. So if you want to hear a whole bunch of stuff about that and what we can do about it, we've got another presentation coming in the spring. It's the one that I've worked the most on. It was what all of my graduate research was in, but we're going to help you figure out how to fix those digital problems. All right, so we got digital interference. I want to be realistic. One of the problems we have is college is crazy expensive. And because college has gotten crazy expensive, we as parents think that our kids have to have perfect grades and they have to have a well-rounded extracurricular resume. We're conscious of the fact that leaving high school and moving into the next phase is going to require competition. And so even at elementary school, we tend to start kids with this hyper expectation of how they're going to perform. All right, another one, and this will be evidence. I say this every time we're together. Alan never tells me what to say, ever. And I say that because one of my points is one that I know is a little uncomfortable for schools, which is that we've given a lot more homework than I think we probably could stand to give. So I am a former teacher. I was in the public education system for a long time, and I struggle with the fact that we give homework in the way that we do. And what I mean by that is not that we give homework. I don't struggle with that. What I struggle with is teachers don't necessarily coordinate who's giving what when. And so if you ask for 2 hours worth of homework on a Tuesday, on the same night that another teacher has asked for an hour or two, you could easily pile 3, 4, 5 hours of homework onto a kid without really realizing it. And in isolation for your class, it may not be a huge deal. But when a kid gets home, none of us would accept our employer sending us home with 5 hours of work to do once we got home, but we tend to do it to our kids. All right, so let's move through some of these things. Root causes, it's interesting, but it's not really why you're here. I want to talk about this one for a minute. Busyness as a badge of honor. For the record, when you put a prompt into AI to give me a picture of a mom winning an award for being busy, that's what it gives you. I don't know. She looks super happy, but like there's kids flying around everywhere, so there's chaos in her home. But something that I wanted you to hear is, I think we're all guilty of it on some level. If somebody asks you, hey, how have things been? It's almost like our default answer to say, oh, well, I'm busy. And we say it almost as though if we don't say that, there's something wrong. Like, it feels weird. If you asked me, if Ashley got on this call with me and she said, how you been, Ryan? And I said, awesome. I got nothing going on. I've been hanging out, been relaxing, watching a lot of TV. It feels weird to say that. We don't, for whatever reason, we have decided, it's kind of a Western value, we have decided that being busy and exhausted is a normal state of being, and anyone who is not busy and exhausted must have too much free time on their hands. All right, that's not the way it has to be. Okay, I want us to kind of get past this idea that busyness is the appropriate state of being, and everything else is laziness, or everything else is a lack of engagement or a lack of involvement. It's not a good thing to look at your life and to see it as overloaded and overwhelmed. All right, so there's a condition we all live in that we're going to try to move out of tonight. The condition is, I want my kids to be great at everything. I want them to be the best in sports. I want them to be the best at school. I want them to have the best opportunities as they get older. And the more stuff I put them in, the more I feel like I'm moving them towards that. As a parent, I kind of feel like it's a badge of honor that I'm busy. You know, if my work schedule is busy, that means I've done a lot of work in schools, and I've worked with a lot of clients, and I've done a lot of presentations, and I've traveled, and that sounds great, but I want to get past the idea that you running yourself ragged is somehow a beneficial thing for you, and that it is somehow the expectation. All right. So with that in mind, I want to move into the how to help concepts. I'm going to start big, and when I say I'm going to start big, I'm going to start really big. But as we get big, I want to start trying to funnel it down into some stuff for your family. And I want you to hear that we're going to try to hit this at a full family level. Okay, balanced living for kids will happen with balanced living for families. Okay, I wish that weren't the case. So I'm going to pause for a second before we get to the what to do part. Parents, if there were a way for me to help you have your kids live a healthy life, that doesn't involve you being healthier, I would give it to you. But I don't know that. I don't know those tools. I don't have those tools. So what we're going to talk about tonight is going to help you structure your family in a little more intentional way. And then from that, we're going to flow into your kids on kind of a micro level. But we're going to start big. And when I say we're going to start big, I mean we're going to start really big. All right. So the first thing I want you to do, if you feel overwhelmed and if you are looking to maintain balance in your life and maintain balance in the life of your kids, the number one thing that you can do, and this is something that I have rarely met a family who has done this. I want you to stop, and this weekend, I want you to start having conversations about defining your family value system. Okay, we're going to define our family value system, and then we're going to use that family value system to make decisions about how we give away our time. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by this. If it is your core value, and for the record, I'm not judging this, I'm just going to use an easy one. If it is your core value system as a family, you want to make as much money as you can possibly make. Okay, again, no judgment. Maybe that's your thing. Maybe your thing is we want to try to accumulate as much wealth as we can possibly accumulate. All right. If that's your metric and that is your value system, that is your core driving value, if you are given the choice of two different options, one of them, the payoff is money, cash. It's a sale. It's whatever it is that's your field. The other one is the payoff is not money related. It's more personal. If your value system is money is what you're chasing, then you're going to make the money decision. Okay? Again, it's not necessarily what I would do, but I'm not you, and I'm not going to judge your decisions. What I do want you to know is what is at the core of who you are as a family should dictate how you spend your free time. All right, let's not make this abstract. I'm going to give you some really, really, really practical stuff. So here are the conversations that I want you to begin having as soon as possible. The conversations are, who are we? That is the primary focus of this dialogue. So here are the questions that I want you to consider. What are our most important values individually and as a family? I would like for you to start with that individually. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what this would look like in my home. It is myself, my wife, and we've got 2 sons. What I would like for us to do is spend some time all individually asking ourselves what our most important values are. Now, my sons, the oldest is 13. He's going to participate in this conversation pretty extensively. My youngest is 9. Right now, his core value is still Bluey. I love that. That's kind of his spirit animal. So his core value is still Bluey, and well, no, his core values are Bluey and Reese's shapes, whatever the current shape is seasonally. So that's kind of his core value system. So if it were up to him, all of our family decisions would be based around, can I watch Bluey and can I eat Reese's? And if the answer is yes to those 2 questions, it does not matter what we're considering. All right, my 13-year-old is going to be a little different. But I want you as the adults to drive this conversation. What are your most important values? What matters to you? When you think about your life and you think about what you want to say about your time and what you want to say about your life, what are the values that are at the core of that? Your answer is going to be different from mine, and I'm not interested in what the answer. I mean, I'm interested if you want to talk about them, but it doesn't matter to me what those values are. It matters to me that you have articulated those values. Okay, I want you to be consistent with who you are as a family. Okay, once you've done that, you're then going to ask one of the most enlightening questions that you can possibly ask. This one, I promise, if you haven't done it, ask yourself this question, and you're going to have a big, giant exhale, just like I do every time I ask it. Does our schedule actually reflect those values? And most of the time, the answer is going to be, not really. What's weird is the things that are at our core value, we tend to assume are a given. And so we fill our schedule with stuff that doesn't fit those core values. All right. Some secondary questions. So those are the 2 big ones. The big ones are, who are we as a family? And then the next one is, does our schedule reflect who we are as a family? All right. The next 2 are kind of sub questions, but they're things that I want you to consider. Are there things that we give our time to that we don't actually value very much? All right. So an example, I don't really value, I'll use sports because it's the one that's most on my mind, because we had a game last night that we really should have won, but we didn't. All right. Are there things that we give our time to that don't matter that much? We don't value that much. We do value sports with our kids because I think they teach really good, valuable lessons. but we probably give more time to it than is equal to the value that we give it. The catch is it's something we do appreciate, something we do enjoy. So while it may not be a core value for us, it is something we're going to give our time to. And a secondary question, are there things that we value a lot that we don't give as much time to as we would like? One of the points in the chat when I first asked the question about tonight, one of the points that I read was something along the lines of balancing a faith system with family or instilling a faith system in family. My guess is for most of you, if there is a spiritual orientation to your family, or if there is a religious orientation to your family, it probably would fit into that one. My guess is for most of us, it doesn't necessarily get as much time as we would like for it to get. So are there other things that you would like, the other things that you value? Are there, let me give you an easy one. If you say, well, we value our family relationship, that is at the core of who we are. We want to be a family that's connected. Okay, my question is, are there things that you value a lot that you don't give a lot of time to? Most families that tell me they really value family time don't actually spend a lot of time together. It's a value. They say it's a value, but when it comes to their actual schedule, it doesn't really look that way. All right, here's now I'm gonna talk about this next little section of bullet points in kind of a roundabout way. I ask this question a lot. I change the subject, but I ask it with families all the time. Here's the question I ask. What would a healthy family schedule look like? I need to know your ideal version of whatever it is we're discussing so that I kind of have a frame of reference. Okay, so what would if you and the people in your home do this exercise? So you and your spouse, you and your partner, you and your kids, whoever it is who shares a space with you, what does a healthy family schedule look like? That is an important conversation for you guys to have. I want you to do it individually, and I want you to ask the question, how do we make a healthy family schedule more of a reality? Now, here's why this question is really important to me. It's important to me because most of the time, families don't have the same answer. Okay. I am assuming that the people on this call are adults. And so I'm going to give you an example of how I have used this conversation outside of the context of time. As a relationship counselor who works with a lot of married people and a lot of older adults who are in committed romantic relationships, one of the primary issues that I deal with when it comes to navigating tension in a relationship are sexual issues. And one of the things that I'll ask is, what does an ideal sexual relationship with your partner look like? And the reason I'm using that as an example is because you can imagine I've never had two people give me the exact same answer. Okay, so the goal once we get to that is not to figure out which one of you is right and which one of you is wrong. The goal is to listen as the other one explains what their actual values are and what an ideal looks like to them, and listen to the other person do the same. And in that conversation, we try to find your non-negotiables. We try to find the things that where there is some room for debate and dialogue, and we try to work together. All right, so here's how this conversation ends. I'm going to use you and your family as an example. So I want you to mentally put your kids in your mind. You're going to have an ideal definition of a family schedule. Your partner may have a slightly different one. Your kids may have a different one. The goal is not to put them all on the table and pick the winner. The goal is to put them all on the table and then debate them and discuss them and talk about, hey, why'd you pick this one? I wouldn't have put that on my list. Why did you put it on yours? Because I want to hear your perspective. And then through that dialogue and through those conversations, what you end up doing is revealing what truly matters to you as family members. Once you've done that, so there's 4 different versions of an ideal family's calendar on your table. From that, the goal is to create a new one. It's one that honors everybody's views while also recognizing that the parents are the ultimate authorities. All right, so I want you to begin that conversation, but we're not going to end it there. A couple more things about who we are. I would love for you to spend some time over the course of the next few years. Yes, week, but years. I want you to define the word successful. And I want you to do that for each member of the family. Define the word successful, not just for you, but for your kids. I would like for you to define the word successful, because if you can define the word successful and your partner and your kids can define the word successful, what you find is that, again, you have differing definitions of what that word means, which means you're all chasing something different. we all want success. I want my kids to have academic success. I want them to have athletic success. I'm going to give you an example because it's easy. Success on a basketball floor for my son who plays basketball. Here's what success is. Success is I typically give him a minimum number of shots that I would like for him to attempt. Not that he doesn't have to make them. He doesn't have a lot of control over that. But I want him to attempt a certain number of shots, primarily because he is a kid who's a little more reserved and he's a little shy and reluctant, which I question if he'd ever hung out with me before. But he is this super kind of shy, kind of internal kid. And so I have a number of shots I want him to take because I want him to kind of come out of that shell. Success means fighting for rebounds. Doesn't have to get them. It just means show me that you're doing these things. Our metric for success is really defined, but it's not anything in the scorebook. And so after a game is over, I can tell him he was successful, even if he hasn't scored, even if he has no rebounds. I can tell him he was successful based on how we've defined success. You as a parent might define it differently. Maybe you're not like me. Maybe you have like an all-state athlete, and success to you is a definable statistic. Be careful with that, but maybe it is. If that's the case and you and your kids agree that that's what we're going to shoot for, well, at least you understand what you're working for now. All right, what does it mean to be successful at work? What does it mean to be successful in extracurriculars? I asked a client yesterday, why do you eat lunch? And the look on her face made me laugh because she was really thrown off by it. She said, what do you mean? I said, why do you eat lunch? And she goes, because it's lunch. And I said, no. Like, do you eat at lunch because you're hungry? Or do you eat because like you've had a rough morning and it's kind of an escape for you? Like, what does lunch mean? Which is the most therapist-y question I could have possibly asked this person. But it allowed us to have a conversation about how she defined lunch, which helped us work on some dietary stuff. Now, here's the reason that that's important. How you define these words will dictate how you engage with these words. Parents, you want your kid to be successful. What does successful mean, though? If you don't know, you know what you're going to end up chasing? If you haven't defined success, your kid is going to end up chasing metrics. What do I mean? A's, points, goals, friends. If you haven't defined, you know what a healthy, successful social life is for an elementary kid? The ability to be in different environments and get along with kids. That is super successful. The ability to be with this group over here and to find something to talk about. The ability to be with this group over here and find something to talk about. If we don't define that for our kids, though, it's likely that they're going to say, what is success to them? Lots of friends. Everyone thinks I'm cool. Everyone looks at me a certain way. That's not success. Success is the ability to in a healthy way, navigate complex systems. All right. If we could only use the way we currently spend our time to define what we actually value, what would it tell us? This is kind of an investigative question. So if I asked you to go back through your life right now, through the last week, look at your calendar, look at your life, and you're not allowed to give me any opinions. You have to use the evidence. The evidence is how you have chosen to spend your time over the last few weeks and months. If I only had that to go on, what do you value? My guess is it's probably not going to be the things that you tell me you value. Now, I want to put a disclaimer on this. There are people on this call who I know have to work crazy hours. Some of you on this call, one of my clients fairly recently, we were talking about success and kind of what defines success. And he expressed to me, he said, well, there's the minimum hours expectation at my job that I'm working 60 hours. Well, that changes the way we define success. If that is the minimum expectation, if he is expected to be engaged with his job, he's on call constantly. If he's engaged with his job for 60 hours a week, he's going to look back and I'm going to say, what do you value? And his only answer would be work. I know you have to work. I need to look past that. And I'm going to show you in a minute when we look at time budgets. I'm going to tell you how to work past that. But I do recognize you have to work. I'm not asking you to quit your job if it doesn't align with your values. That's a separate conversation. All right. Let me go ahead and throw these last couple up here because I don't want to belabor this point. It is 6:05. I want to be sure we've had a chance to get through everything. And then I want to respond to any questions you may have. And so you can see in front of you, you don't need me to read it to you. These questions are meant to guide you to a healthier family structure. The questions you see in front of you, honestly, if you do nothing else, if over the course of the rest of this school year, you and the people in your home who are able to do it, if they're able to engage with you in a conversation where you even cover some of the ground that you see in front of you, you know what I promise you? I promise you, you will have a much better handle on what you value. And once you have a handle on what you value and you begin giving yourself, giving your time to the things you value, I promise you, busyness will not feel as overwhelming as it feels now. All right, so that was the macro. Let me move to the micro here for 1 second. Let's talk about your kids. If you want to protect your children from an overloaded life, if you want to protect your kids emotionally, if you want to protect them socially, and if you want to protect them from being kids who live their life chasing the compliments of other people, one of the most important things you can instill in your kids at a young age is always know what you value and be intentional about how you spend your time. And parents, the best way for you to do that is to start in your home. What do you value and be intentional with your time? I promise you this. If you are giving more of your time to things you truly value, you won't feel busy. You'll feel engaged. If you're giving more of your time to the things you value, your kids will not feel a level of stress to the extent that they do now. Okay, so we're going to start with the positive. Yes, I read the chat. I know that screens get in the way. We're going to talk about that. I know the sports get in the way. We're going to talk about that too. I know a lot of things get in the way, but I want to, before we get to what we cut out of our schedule, I want to start with what do we want? What do you value? And if the goal is, I just don't want to feel this way, man, I get it, but how do you want to feel? So let's start there. I am eternally optimistic when it comes to our ability to navigate change in our family. All right. So most of this presentation was going to kind of dwell on these first couple of slides. I'm going to move a little quicker through the next ones because they're important, but they're all kind of offshoots of the conversation we already had. All right. So I want you to be a family that actually has time in your life of intentional rest. I don't know what it's going to look like for you, but I want it on a small scale and I want it on a big scale. So what do I mean? Small scale. On a small scale, I want you to have time in your day that is meant as actual downtime. I don't know when that might be for you. And if you can't find it, my heart goes out to you. I really want to tell you it's fine if you can't find it, but I don't think it's fine if you can't find it. I think you've got to be able to find it, even if it's just a couple of minutes. Something that is yours, something that gives you the ability to kind of sit and decompress and let out some steam. I don't love when that involves a screen, but I'll be honest with you, I don't hate it either. I don't love it. I'd prefer it didn't, but if that's your thing, I want to be intentional in how you use it, and we'll get to that in the March presentation. But here's my question. How did your family practice rest? When you're worn out, what do you do? That is a rhetorical question because I know we're not I like doing this in person where I can hear you. But where you are right now, how do you practice rest? If you guys, today's Tuesday, if you guys got to Friday, if you and your family got to Friday and felt exhausted, what would you do this weekend? How would you alleviate that this weekend? I need that to be an actual conversation. If I'm hungry, I need to know where the food is. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell you. If I'm hungry, I need to know where the food is. If I'm tired, I need to know where the rest is. So for you and your family, how do you practice rest? I want you to prioritize it more than you do. We're going to have a slide on that here in just a little bit, but I need you to hear me. And I also want you to observe the way you measure the worth of a single day. So that kind of goes back to where we started this conversation, which is value. But I want to use it to jump into the next conversation. So we're going to be a people who work hard, but we're going to be a people who are intentional with our rest. Here's maybe the way I can put a bow on this slide. I want you to be as intentional about your rest as you are about your productivity. If you want your kid to make straight A's, you probably dedicate a lot of time to study and homework. If you want your kid to be in a better headspace, if you want your kid to feel a lower level of stress, you got to prioritize rest. You can't tote a kid to practice 5 days a week and then be upset with them when they have an inability to manage their emotions. You can't bring a kid to extracurriculars Saturday and Sunday school 5 days, and extracurriculars another 3 or 5 days during the week. You can't do that and expect a kid to be able to emotionally regulate. Parents, before I move into my next slide, I want to pause for a second because I know I've used a lot of jargon. So I want to pause for a second because I'm going to say something in plain English. If your kid is worn out, your kid is not going to be able to regulate his or her emotions. That's what kids do. When they're exhausted, they do not have the ability to internalize emotions and then appropriately externalize and vocalize the experience. They can't. So if they're exhausted, you're kind of setting them up for this. You're setting them up for failure. I know I'm not alone in this, so I feel comfortable saying it. But when my kids seem off emotionally, when they seem when they are guacamole, which is always extra and a little on the side. When my kids are guacamole, I try to be conscious of two things. One, are they hungry? And two, are they tired? Now, that's not always the explanation. There are times they're 13 and 9. There's plenty of times where the answer is no, they need to work through whatever the struggle is. But if they're tired and hungry, I have to take that into consideration. Now, that doesn't mean I excuse their behavior. It just means that I have to look at a complete picture. So parents, if your kid is tired, they're going to look like they have a struggle with emotional regulation. They might, but they might not. They might be overloaded. All right, so I wanted to give you an example of what's in front of you. This is, I admit, I am kind of a type A linear dude who wants things in its neat order, like everything's weirdly organized in my life. Even the stuff that's not organized, like my wife thinks my clothes are on the ground. They're not. They're in the spot where they go if they're not ready to go to the hamper yet, because I can still put those on. Right. So that is my disorganized organization. I am assuming I'm not the only one who has that problem. But like, I know I didn't put my keys in a random spot. That's exactly where I intended to put them. So I'm weirdly linear. I'm only saying that because the thing I'm about to show you is also weirdly linear. You may look at this and be like, nope, not for me. I get it. I won't dwell on it. But for those of you type A, linear, slot A into tab B, or tab A into slot B people, this next one's for you. Here's what I would like for you to do. Spend some time actually considering your time as you do your money. All right, so let me talk about money. With my money, there are certain things that are not optional. My mortgage payment is not optional. My kids' food is not optional. I do like them enough to feed them. The bills, my car payment, my phone, all the stuff. Those are all I can't get out of those. So when I'm dealing with my budget, all of that has to be considered first. I don't know how much money I have until all that's been taken care of. So I've got to handle all of the non-negotiables first. From there, maybe I've got a little bit of flexibility because once that's all done, I get to see how much is left over to see how much I have to use. I want you to take that same approach to your schedule. I want you to put on your budget, okay, how much time do you give to work? How much time do you give to school? How much time do you give to, and we're talking about your kids, how much time do your kids generally give to homework? How much time do you give to like getting dressed and getting ready? How much time do you give to extracurriculars? How much time do you give to practice? How much time do you give to rehearsal? How much time do you give to friends and social life? I would love for you and your family to kind of go back through and get a gauge on how much time you have spent over the course of the last few weeks doing the various things that you do. Now, here's the reason for that. Your iPhone is trying to do that for you every Sunday when they send you that screen time update. It's telling you how you spend your screen time. And most of you do what I do, and you're like, triggered, swiping off that. Stop confronting me, Apple. I don't want to be called out on my behavior. So that idea, though, is really important because you know what it does? If you open up screen time, okay, hold on. I said I didn't have any work this week, but I was on Facebook for how long? I was looking through, scrolling randomly through news stuff. I was on Instagram for how long? I'm going to make a confession, and some of you are going to make fun of me for it. In fact, I know Christine actually going to make fun of me for it later. So my entire professional career has been in exploring the impact of digital media on like analog relationships. I just got on Instagram like 2 weeks ago. There's a lot going on Instagram, apparently. I didn't know that. So I have now learned that Instagram is the place where all the cool kids hang out. It didn't show up in my research. When I was researching it, it wasn't there. Now it's a thing. I'm not taking any comments or questions on that. All right, so here's what I want you to do. With your time budget, I want you to ask yourself, what are my non-negotiables? You have to sleep. Parents, I'm going to ask you to do something hard. Please don't let sleep always be the place that you pull from. I'm begging you, please don't let sleep always be the place, because usually when we're out of our time budget, sleep is what we pull from. I'm talking about for you or your kids. Please don't let sleep always be the thing that gets sacrificed. So let's look at some of the other things. Eating is probably a big one too. You don't want to sacrifice that one. But if you look at all the other ones, school, extracurriculars, homework, flex time that's spent, I want you to actually look at your life the way that you would look at your monetary budget, which is where do we spend here, and then how much do we have left over? And here's why. Take you back to 2 slides ago. Remember what I asked you to do 2 slides ago? I asked you to think about what you value and whether you're giving it enough of your time. Well, if you've done that while also working through a time budget, you're going to know I really value family time. And I've got every day, we've got like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours maybe of flex time. Well, if I value family time, and I've got 2 or 3 hours of flex time, how about in that 2 or 3 hours of flex time, let's do something as a family. Guess what you just did? You just worked through a time budget. You took the thing that you valued, you plugged it into the time that you had. I promise you, you didn't change anything other than how you're spending your time. You will feel more balanced. Your kid will be calmer, as will you. All right, so let me move on to the one that I'm really struggling with right now. So I'm going to, again, this is not, I feel like you guys are doing therapy for me. So when we're done, you're all welcome to bill my insurance for this conversation. But let me tell you what happened to me earlier today. Basketball season ends on Monday. So next Monday is our last basketball season. My son and I were talking about track because track is up next. And I asked him, I said, do you want to run track? I was kind of rooting for a hard no on that, but I was going to let him offer his opinion. And he said, I don't really know. And through the course of this conversation, it dawned on me that we had talked about this already. And we had decided that there are 3 sports in his world. There's football in the fall, there's basketball in the winter, and there's track in the spring. And we had decided he could do 2 of those because we want an off season. And I don't know why I didn't think about that before we talked about it, but in the middle of that conversation, he did remind me of that. And so we've decided, even if he wanted to run track, we're sticking to the off season. We also committed to, now that he is in middle school, we committed to reclaiming our summers. So he's not playing summer ball. He's not doing the summer stuff that he may have done in previous years, because we're trying to determine an off season. Our off season is the summer. Now, off season, some of you hear that and you immediately think sports. It doesn't help that I put a picture of a baseball field on there. So you're probably thinking sports for a reason. I mean, off season, period. Are your kids in theater? Awesome. Let's not do it 12 months. Are your kids musicians? Fantastic. Let's not be in lessons 12 months out of the year. Are your kids in STEM? That's amazing. STEM programs have absolutely exploded. What you guys are doing in your district is even cooler than what a lot of other districts are doing. Rockwall is doing the same thing, which is where I live. The work that's being done in STEM is amazing, but let's give our kids a little bit of a break. I want to have an off season. What do we do in that off season? In that off season, we try to create more downtime and more flex time. All right, man, I'm aware of what time it is. I'm going to roll through some stuff here pretty quickly. I want you to learn when and how to say no. All right. I want you to say yes to things that fit into your value system. I want you to say no to more things that don't fit into your value system. But I also want you to do that without burning bridges in your life. And here's what I mean. If it doesn't fit within your value system to like involve your extended family in your social time or in your downtime, okay, I get that. But if you don't tend to them at all, those relationships are gonna turn, and we don't want that. If your job doesn't fit into your value system, awesome. Put barriers where you can put them, but I also don't want you to say no to things that could jeopardize your career. Okay, so learn when and how to say no. Here's the question. What can I say no to? And then when can I say no to it? All right, that's a really easy pathway. What can I say no to? When can I say no to it? There are certain things that I get you can't say no to. But I want you to know what the ones are that you can, and then learning when to do it or how to do it. I'm also going to give you an organizational tool that's been really helpful for me. I always maintain 2 working to-do lists. I would show you mine, but there's like confidential information on it, and I'd lose my license. I have 2 different to-do lists. I have my to-do list and I have my today list. Okay, so my to-do list is stuff that's on my mind that's got to get done. My today list is stuff that I can't leave my office until it gets done. That is, in fact, when I'm having my coffee in the morning, this is what I'm looking at. I look at my to-do list and my today list. This is what I've got going on this week. This is what I've got going on today. Now, let me tell you why that's really valuable. My goal is every week to move something. Eventually, something from the to-do list is going to move into the today list. The goal is to knock everything out on my today list, and then hopefully to get at least a head start on something on my to-do list. Okay, that might help you organize a little bit better. It also might help you prioritize when you do have productivity time. All right, sleep and movement. Now, this is for you and it's for your kids. There's nothing I'm telling you here that is exclusive to you, and there is nothing I'm telling you that is exclusive to your kids. It's all for everybody. So here's sleep and movement. Don't fall asleep to your screen. That one's tough. We all struggle with it to some degree, but recognize that when you lay in bed and scroll through your phone, it's almost a guarantee you're going to go to bed later than you would have otherwise. Okay, so I'm fine if you want to scroll through your phone at night. I don't love it. Again, turn the blue light off. Definitely go into night mode. Turn off your blue light. But when you get in bed, go to bed. That's what your bed is for. Your bed is not there to entertain you in front of a screen. It's there to kind of be a screen-free zone to the best of your ability. You probably need more sleep than you're getting. Your kids do too. And this is going to be a tough one. So elementary kids have a tendency to wake up really early. That's part of their DNA. As your kid gets into secondary school and gets into high school, they're going to need more sleep. I want us to be a generation of parents who don't judge and stigmatize our kids for catching up on sleep when they need it. Neurobiologically speaking, I don't have time to go into it tonight, but if I were to give you some brain chemistry, a 16-year-old kid biologically doesn't tend to get tired until around midnight, maybe a little bit later. And biologically, their natural circadian rhythms have them waking up usually around 10. Okay, so that's about 10 hours. It's like being an infant again, where they need this crazy amount of sleep. Now, that's because adolescence is this crazy time where the prefrontal cortex is reforming, but that's not the point. The point is, calling a kid lazy because they're catching up on sleep is not a great idea. I don't want to stigmatize sleep. When kids need sleep, let them get sleep. All right, walk more. Man, if there is one thing that I wish more people would do, it's walk without stuff in your ears. Okay, sounds weird, but if you want to de-stress and if you want your kids to de-stress, one of the easiest things you can do is start taking walks, but take the AirPods out. Okay, people get really mad at me when I say that because they love their walks, but they want music or they want a podcast. I'm speaking not preferentially. This is not just like because I want you to hear the birds. It's because that's what science tells us about what happens when you move. There's something happening in your brain. I'm going to give you the 10-second version of a 20-minute speech. When you have no stimulation, so no music and no podcast, and you are walking and moving and your eyes are moving around, there is a dopaminergic reset happening inside your brain that is allowing you to lower your levels of stress. You're raising things like serotonin, things that are really, really good. Okay, that doesn't happen as readily when there is digital stimulation. So when you've got AirPods in your ears, you're not doing what you want to do. All right. So I'm going to give you my last 2, and then I'm going to hang out for a minute or two and answer some questions. Parents get really upset with me when they see this. I want to remind you of this. I bet I have some IT people in the room because I know your district and you guys have a lot of people in tech and STEAM and like you have a lot of engineers. I would imagine that I'm not the only one on this call who knows what I'm about to say. The word multitasking was meant to define things that a computer can do that a human can't. That's why it was so novel. That phrase, we didn't invent that word to describe parents who are awesome at what they do. We didn't use that word to describe people who can watch a show while doing their homework, while tending to their kids, while, like, that's not what that word was meant to describe. That word was meant to describe a particular operation that a computer can do that human beings physically cannot do. What we do know is that you can do something called fast switching. Fast switching is me talking to you, now me looking down at my phone, now me looking at my iPad, now me talking to you. Okay, I'm multitasking in the sense that I just did 3 things in the span of 3 seconds. But what we know about attention and focus is I did not maintain my focus on you when I looked at my phone. And I didn't maintain my focus on my phone when I looked at my iPad. That's the way the human brain works. You cannot be zeroed in and fully present in 2 places at once, even if those places are right in front of you. All right, so I want you to try to single task because it works a whole lot better. Last one. I can't believe I'm actually going to get this in on time. The last one is I want you to celebrate victories. Parents, I want to talk about your kids for a second, about their really specific experiences. Your kid comes home and your kid has like 14 different things that they've got to get done. Now, they don't really think about it that way, but they've got 14 things to get done. They've got homework in a particular class. They've got a little project they've been working on, like a science fair project they've been working on. They're also a member of the president or the principal's club. That is like this little thing that they do on campus where they meet with the principal, and it's your kid's job tomorrow to bring the cupcakes. And then in addition to that, she also plays the clarinet. She's really good. And so she's not just in the band, the orchestra in her school, but she's also in private lessons because we want to grow that. Because it's great, because it's artistic. She also really likes to read, and she's got this really unique ability to digest literature and then maybe even to spit it back. And so we as parents know that all of these things our kids are capable of are all on their schedule. So you know what we do? We put a schedule in front of them, and we leave no room for joy, because all we're looking for is, did you finish the task? And then let's move to the next one. So here's what happens. A kid whose schedule looks the way I just described. Okay, I got my cupcakes. Okay, great. Check. I did my homework. Okay, great. Check. I practiced my clarinet. Okay, great. Check. If that's the way she lives her day, you know what she doesn't get? She gets no joy in the victories that I just rattled off. All she gets is relief that it's over. That's not a good way for a kid to grow up. I don't want your 4-year-old. I don't want your 8-year-old. I don't want your 10-year-old to grow up feeling like the expectation is that you just check things off. You know what I want? I want her to feel like when she did her clarinet practice today, she hit that C note that she'd been struggling with. And man, that is worthy of like spiking the football, telling everybody we know, and making a video of the day she finally nailed that C note. I want her to know that when she picked out the cupcake, she did it herself. And I want to be able to tell her, you knew that this task was in front of you. You picked the cupcakes. And you know what? Let's make another win. In fact, let's add to our digital thing that you're going to hear me talk about in March. Let's give her the cupcakes. Let her walk up to the cash register. Let her put them up in front of the cash register. Let the cashier, let her have the debit card, and let her look at you and be like, what am I supposed to do? And if she can work through that, at the end, you get to say, man, you picked them out yourself. You bought them yourself. And tomorrow, when you bring the cupcakes to the principal's club, I want you to tell her, my mom didn't get these. I picked them out and I bought them because I really was excited about today. Those little tiny victories. What's crazy is your kids get so many victories in the course of a day, but as a parent, you're so focused on what's coming next that you never stop and say, man, I'm proud of you. You never stop and say, look what you did. And you rarely stop and do what I just asked you to do. Because you know what's easier? It's easier for me to say, you know what, you sit in the car, I'll go get the cupcakes. You know why? It's only going to take you 2 minutes. It might take your kid 10, because your kid's going to have to pick the cupcakes out. Well, what's the goal? What's the goal? Is the goal to just get stuff done? Folks, if the goal is to get stuff done, here's my advice. Then get stuff done. If that's your goal, then get it done. However you need to get it done. But if your goal is to raise kids who enjoy their life, if your goal is to raise kids who engage with you, if your goal is to raise kids who don't just see value in finishing tasks, but see value in actually giving themselves to tasks. Spike the football. Celebrate victories. Your kids have done something today that you can celebrate. I don't know what it is, but your kids have done something today that you can celebrate. If the only thing they ever get from you is relief that they got it done or frustration that they didn't, there's no joy in that. There's no joy for your kid, and there's no joy for parents. All right. I'm going to put these things on the screen in front of you. This is the recap. There is one thing in this presentation that I didn't pause and talk about. I didn't pause and talk about it because it's all I'm going to talk about in a couple of weeks, but I don't want to leave you hanging either. A lot of you said that screen time gets in the way of your family time, of what's vying for your kids' attention. As long as your kid is in elementary school, your kid's screen time is solely your discretion and responsibility. You're going to hear me in March. Actually, Chrissy, is it March that we're doing that? Okay. You're going to hear me in March, not just tell you that that is your responsibility. I'm committing to, I promise you, I'm going to give you tools. Okay. I'm going to tell you how to have that conversation with your parents. I'm actually going to give you a way to have your kids surrender a device that will be weirdly peaceful. Okay. It's something I've used for years. I promise you, I'm not going to leave you hanging on that. But I need you to hear me. If you feel that your screen time is getting in the way of your connection with your family, it's time today to start doing that a little bit differently. Okay. So that is my goal for you. It's my hope for you. The shortest possible version I can give you is be really specific about how your kids are using their screen time. Okay. So as a preface to March, I'm going to show you the difference between really problematic technology and technology that's not really all that problematic. I'm going to talk to you about what is an appropriate-ish use of our technology and what's not. But before we even touch your kids, if you want to really open this conversation, here's what I'm going to ask you to do, parents. If screen time is getting in the way of your relationship with your kids, my challenge to you is between now and March for you to not get a handle on theirs, but to get a handle on yours. Because if you can get a handle on yours, you're going to understand what they're dealing with, and you're going to have a lot more tools at your disposal. All right, so I'm going to pause before I shut it down. That's my office. There's a QR code. If you follow that, that'll take you straight to my office. You can, if I can help, this is my only shameless plug. I am a counselor in private practice. All of the work that I do is digital. It's virtual like this now. It's a virtual practice. We do have an in-person office in McKinney. If you would like that information, I'm happy to give it to you. The office is called New Horizons Center for Healing. Paravita is my company. We just started it about a year and a half ago. It's all virtual. If you want to talk personally, if I can help you individually, feel free to reach me there. For the rest of you, I'm going to hang out for a minute. And I'm going to answer some of the questions. If you've got things that you want to be sure that I address, put them in the chat now, and I will do my best. Before I do that, Ashley and Chrissy, do you have anything that you need to go over?
Yes, I just wanted to say really quick that I just put a survey into the chat. And so if anybody, if hopefully all of you will fill it out, it really is valuable information for us to know, about future sessions that we offer. But also you'll be entered into a prize drawing to a copy of Ron Ferguson's book, How to Raise Highly Successful Children, which actually many of his points go along really well with what Dr. Ryan had to say today. Have you read his book before?
Awesome.
Okay, good. We had him speak at one of our first sessions this year.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Super cool.
Okay. So if you have go ahead. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'm seeing a little bit of feedback. That's my favorite. I'm going to take it home. Guys, I'm exhausted. I'm going to hang out, but I want you to know, Donna, so happy I budgeted time for this while my 10-year-old was at soccer is my favorite. Thank you for putting that where I could see it. I love you for it. If you have questions or things that we haven't covered, throw them in the chat now. I'm going to hang out for a minute or two.
Looks like there's one question, Christy.
Okay. Yeah. She's asking how to engage with her kindergartner and get the kindergartner to share everything that happened at school that day.
Ooh, awesome question. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips, but keep in mind, I don't know your kindergartner, so there's going to be some gray area for me. Tip number one, do it quick. What I mean by that is in the car, generally is better because it's fresh on their mind. The farther they get away from it, the harder it gets. Number two, as soon as kindergarten is over, you want the secret key to actually getting a kid who will communicate with you. The key is food. When they are done with their day at kindergarten, they are probably hungry. Their blood sugar is probably low. And so food And then I want you to ask a couple of questions. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is keep in mind a kindergartner can't tell you when you say, how was your day? Your kindergartner doesn't really know what you're asking. And so there may be a broad answer that's not giving you the information you're looking for. So with a kindergartner, I want you to ask really specific questions. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of what some specific questions might look like. Who did you sit with at lunch today? That's a really specific question. What was it like while you were sitting at lunch today? Okay, so that's going to give me a thought of number one, their routine. Number two, who are they with socially? What did you do during recess? Do you remember who you played with during recess? Do you remember what you played during recess? Those types of really specific questions can get your 5-year-old to kind of engage with you. All right, here's my last piece of advice as it relates to working with kindergartners. Okay, this one's going to be tough because it's going to feel kind of weird. We have a weird tendency, not weird, that's not fair. I know why we do it. We have a tendency to ask only positively slanted questions to 5-year-olds. Okay, so in other words, our 5-year-olds, we ask, tell me some good things that happened to you today. Okay, those are great questions and you should ask them, but be mindful that you might also need to ask your 5-year-old things like, hey, did anything happen today that you hope doesn't happen again? Did anything happen today that wasn't so fun? Did anything happen today that you were uncomfortable with? So those types of things can allow a kid, it's hard to ask a kid to internalize something negative and then to come home and voluntarily share it. So if you can kind of walk them into that, that might be better. All right, next up, how can you connect with your 11-year-old child who is spending too much time on video games without making him think you don't want him to play video games? All right, Joe, that's good. Well, I promise you I'm going to hit video games in March. That is a really long answer. Let me give you the quickest answer I can give you. I asked you to define what your value system was early in this presentation. I weirdly want you to do the same thing when it comes to video games. All right, so a question I have with my kids all the time is, why do we play video games? Living with a therapist has got to be tough. I ask why for everything. Why do we play video games? You know what the answer is? To enjoy our day. Okay, is it appropriate for video games to be the only thing that we do in our free time? Well, no. All right, so here's my rule with my kids. If we have time limits on certain things, my rule with my kids is if I ever have a hard time getting you off of a video game console, you are telling me that you're doing it too much. That's the first thing. The second thing I say is if I ever give you choice time and the first place you go every time is to the console, that tells me you're doing it too much. So I'm going to let your kid's 11. If your kids, my boys are 13 and 9, and this is a conversation we have all the time. They're right in that same wheelhouse. They know when I give them choice time, you got to be mindful of not going to that Xbox every time. They know that dad has said, you go to the Xbox 3 or 4 times in a row. The next time I give you free time, I'm going to tell you free time, but no video games. So for us, also, Joe, I don't know how old you are, but you've got an 11-year-old, so you're probably old enough to have played video games when you were a kid. I love Mario Kart is awesome. I play video games with my kid. We've played all the Cars games, the Cars race, usually racing games, but play with them from time to time. I'm with you. Here's my other thing. So, Joe, I'm talking to you specifically, but I bet you're not the only parent who's had this problem. Parents, when your kid gives you the impression that you've offended them personally or that you're attacking them by asking them to get off their video games, don't fall for it. It's typically a way to try to make you feel guilty for doing the right thing. All right. My first grader has noticed how school takes so much time of his day. His frustration is, do I have to be going to school all my life? Man, I'm with you. How can I help him better deal with that reality? The first thing you do is you tell him you know exactly what he feels like. I felt that way. I feel that way about my job. Is this what I do? I just work all the time? I get it. I want to connect with my kids over that. So how can I better help with that reality? Here's what I would encourage you to do. Naomi, here's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to, one, connect. Don't immediately try to correct that. You're going to want to say, "Oh no, I get it, but that's not really that bad," because you're trying to make your kid feel better. And I get it. It's awesome. What I would prefer you do is acknowledge that, yeah, that's really hard. And then once you've acknowledged that it's really hard, then you get to ask questions like the ones we talked through tonight. Hey, how do you want to spend your time? Are there things that you would like to do more that you don't get to do? Because my guess is, so I'm going to go back. Hold on. I'm going to go back to the question. The chat was filling up, and so I missed some stuff. The question was, oh, criminy, where'd it go? Anyway, so the idea that you want to rescue your child from the idea that from spending time at school all day is admirable. But what I would prefer is if he's telling you that, he's not telling you that he spends more time at school than he likes. He's telling you he's not doing things he wants to do. More than likely, that's the case. Now, maybe it is that he just feels like he's at school all day, but I get it. All right. What else? How can we access the recording? We got that.
And then I think that someone was looking for your contact information again.
Contact information. I'm going to give you two things you can do. So you can contact Stacy, ParaVitaTCT.com. Stacy knows my life better than I do. That is her email address. Her email address is info@ParaVitaTCT.com. If you need me or if you need to schedule anything with me, I could give you my contact, but all I'm going to do is tell you to contact her. So she is the one who organizes my professional life. She organizes my clinical schedule, and she arranges appointments. So if you want to get in touch with me, reach out to her. She will be more than happy to have a conversation with you about how we can do that. Okay, looks like we're about good. Joe, I got you, buddy. I'm with you. Hey, we've had the same issue.
All right,
you're very welcome. All right, guys.
Thank you so much. Go enjoy your family time now.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Thanks, everyone, for attending.